is the internet gonna end? Can the internet end? Can social media end? Is that theoretically possible? Hey everybody, it's Prince of Queens, and I can't be the only person who's, over the past couple of days, been thinking about this possibility that the internet is just going to go away forever, or be so severely limited that it looks somewhat like China, and we have a great firewall, and only a few companies, and a creepy social credit system where everybody's being monitored over the Orwellian internet that we have here, kind of like it is in China. I don't really think that that's super likely. I realize that there's some very complicated conspiracy theories going around about the Rothschilds, and even ones that extend beyond that, such as things having to do with the Library of Alexandria and the Black Pope and things like that. I don't really know of any evidence for such things, and I don't like speaking about things that don't have any evidence. So, assuming that the Black Pope and the Rothschilds aren't garnering some secrets from the aliens or something, I'm just gonna act like that's definitely not the case, alright? If that's not the case, my prediction would be no, the internet isn't going anywhere. Unless there is World War III, but I don't think that World War III is going to happen either. This would be what I would predict, and this is my honest assessment, and everybody should remember, if they don't, I want to remind you, because not everybody watches all my videos, my father was a computer scientist. He was one of the people that invented computers. My father is about 85 years old now. He was doing computers before most people knew what computers were. I grew up in Seattle during the boom of the first tech explosion in the 1990s. I knew a bunch of people who worked at places like Microsoft especially, but there's some other tech companies, early Amazon workers before it was really super big. And it was really just books back then. And then I lived in San Francisco for 7 years. I've known so many coders and people who think in terms of future technologies, and I've picked their brains and everything. And yes, I think that it is very tempting to say that these are far leftist people, because they are left, and they are in a bubble. They definitely exist in their own little social universe, for sure. But they absolutely aren't stupid. And they do get a little set in their ways, I've noticed specifically on the internet. But when you're alone with these people in person and you actually talk to them, it's really not very hard to have an honest conversation about things like political correctness. And if they realize that you're an intelligent person that they can culturally relate to in the way that I can, it's very easy for me to talk to these people. It's certainly easy enough to say to them, hey, if you keep booting people like Sargon of Akkad basically off of the internet, like they're heading in that direction with Sargon, then they're going to lose more and more business, which they've already been losing. Patreon must have lost so many customers over the past couple of days. Facebook is doing horribly. Twitter is doing horribly. I don't know about Google and YouTube, but there's going to be a tipping point with those things too. And here's the thing to keep in mind. Is the internet going to go anywhere? Well, I don't believe that once technologies are invented, that they just disappear. I don't think that's really possible. And the reason I don't think that that's possible is because I think that there's always going to be some people who know how to rebuild the technology, and some people who want the technology, and some people who realize that if they have the technology to provide to other people, then they can be rich. So, for example, when guns were invented, well, maybe they should have just destroyed them right then and there. Problem is, few people probably would still know how to make them, and those people could become the king of the world with the guns. So what do? Well, you gotta make sure that you have guns. so that other people can't kill you or that you're allied with people who have guns. You have to make sure that you can call the police and get somebody shot. Maybe, if there's a school shooting, the police come and they shoot them. So the guns help you out. I know that you want to say that you wish that there was no guns, but you can't do that. Same with nuclear weapons. You can't just throw all the nuclear weapons in the ocean, because what happens when another country decides to make one? They can threaten nuclear war. Some people are going to remember how they made the nuclear weapons. So it's the same thing with the internet. There's all sorts of people who work at these companies who know enough about computers and networks and things like that they could reinvent the internet and reinvent social media from scratch. There's a lot of very smart people who have been working at these companies who don't like the corporate system. And really, the biggest problem isn't the PC culture of the left in these areas. It's really not. The problem is the corporate system has adopted these PC rules into their corporate HR and everything like that. And that came into being because of the Obama years. The Obama years was the most identitarian period in United States history. He was essentially an affirmative action hire. He was a guy hired for the job of president who was completely incompetent because of the color of his skin. And he ran our economy into the ground and did all these really, really bad things if you actually look into it. Started a war in Libya that he didn't tell us about, legalized the usage of propaganda on the American people, and everybody just started lying all the time. It just became completely permissible to lie. And he also granted tax breaks to the social media companies. The Democrats made sure that they didn't have to pay a whole bunch for their offices. Twitter in particular. I lived right by Twitter in San Francisco. Everybody hated it. Everybody complained about the Twitter office having favors done for it. I don't remember the exact things that went on, but you should do some Google searches if you want to know just how much San Franciscans hate Twitter and why, because there's very substantive reasons people hate it. So the thing to remember is that while people do get stuck in their ways, corporations get a lot more stuck in their ways, because corporations are composed of people who do things in a certain way, except for then there is also the corporate policies, and those corporate policies have to be changed. You can't just decide to change them because a whole large group of people have these corporate policies jurisdicting how they do their jobs. So they could get fired if they violate these corporate policies, and it's going to take a long time to change them. And so these things were drafted during the Obama years. And it turns out that these places decided to implement hate speech policies. And they decided that intersectional feminism was the way to go. And I'm sure all sorts of workers are hating this. I'm sure there's all sorts of James Damores out there who hate this stuff, and they would like to change it. And if these companies do enough things wrong, all of the James Damores are going to start their own company, because big investors will be willing to invest in the new social media companies. And there's a big part of me that really wants that to happen. I would really like Minds and Gab, and there's like a new Twitter-ish thing, and BitChute. I'd love these companies to do well, but there will have to be a little bit more of a breaking point. But the skilled workers that maintain the internet and social media, they're not going away. They're not going to forget how to do their jobs. So I don't really think that the internet is going to go away. I do think that these companies like Patreon have backed themselves into a corner. I think that they've allied with the Democratic Party and other corporate entities, and they probably want to do the bidding of the Democratic Party because the Democrats have done so much for Silicon Valley. I say it wrong all the time. Half the time I say it as silicone, but it's silicon. Yes, I think silicon. They want to do the bidding of the Democratic Party because they became successful businesses under the Democrats' administration, and they feel that they owe the Democrats, and the Democrats probably say, you owe us, you better be loyal to us. But in the end, if they do enough things like ban people like Sargon of Akkad, they're going to be in trouble. Their users are not going to want to use them anymore. When they banned Lauren Southern off of Patreon, well, I can't say that I cared all that much. It's not that I think that she deserved it. I think that she has a right to be on Patreon. I don't think it was fair, exactly. But I'm not a big fan of hers. I don't feel as if she has these great principles that are really firm, and I have a great sense of what type of person she is and that she's really, really fighting for what is right. Well, I feel like Sargon does fight for what is right, and if he appears biased, it's because there is certain bad dragons out there, and so if Sargon seems to be like a dragon slayer, it's because of his principles. He does get some things wrong. I have a few criticisms of him, but overall, he's probably the closest big figure to my personal politics that is out there. It's just the truth, and I've said that very openly for a long time. I watch him very regularly. For an opinion guy, he's pretty good. He is. And that this type of thing, there's going to be reverberations, it's going to vibrate through all of Silicon Valley. People are going to notice because there's going to be a lot of people who actually watch Sargon in the area. Those people aren't stupid. I knew a lot of them. I hung out with a lot of them. And slowly but surely, they're going to start adjusting their policies a little bit. And maybe Patreon will go. Maybe Patreon will bite the dust because of this. Because they look really bad as a business. And maybe a number of the companies are going to go. I have a feeling that Facebook is going to stick around. I do have that feeling. But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe there's going to be some law that they have broken or something, and people pull their funding on Facebook, or maybe people decide to invest a bunch of money in Minds.com. I'm not really sure. But this notion that the internet will just decide to turn on all of its users, well, what happens when there's no content left? What happens when they see the bottom line shrinking and shrinking and shrinking after making these stupid decisions? Well, the corporate policy will slowly but surely probably start to change. It's easy to catastrophize and say, well, this is the end of the internet. They have a target on all of our backs. But at the same time, okay, Sargon did use the N-word. And I'm telling you, I lived in San Francisco. There's some words that you just don't say as a white person. Now, is that fair? Of course not. Is it completely arbitrary? Of course it is. Is it a violation of the First Amendment? Yes. Should these companies be able to basically take away somebody's earnings because of such things? No. Ultimately. And I ultimately don't think that they should have done that to Sargon. I don't think that they should have done it to Alex Jones. And I definitely think with Alex Jones in particular, there was some political motive. And there definitely was a political motive with Sargon as well. They were looking for a technicality. And there's certain people that they really dislike, like Lauren Southern, Gavin McInnes, Alex Jones, James Alsop, Sargon. It's easy to see why they would have a particular vendetta against all of those people. I mean, with Sargon, For all we know, they actually blame him for the fact that Hillary Clinton lost, because his videos, like his video Hillary Clinton must lose, videos like that, they got a lot of views. And sure, that's not enough to swing the election, but the type of thought was really influential in a lot of people's minds. And so, maybe the smartest person that all these different people know ended up watching those videos, and they sort of parroted the talking points, and those people ended up deciding that they were going to vote for Trump. Sargon is a very influential speaker, but if they start, if the companies can only go so long as pissing off their base. And I've been saying this for a long time. I didn't think that I would get hate speech strikes, but also at the same time, here I am. I still exist. I still have my channel. Now, I am fighting a copyright claim that was put on me by the Ellen DeGeneres show. They said that they'd get back to me in 30 days, and it's been about 30 days. So I'm starting to think that some BS is going on, and that's unfair. But at the same time, I'm still here. We've been saying YouTube is over party, YouTube is over party, YouTube is over party for years. And somehow we end up being all right. What has happened since Sargon was taken off Patreon? Well, everybody already knew that Patreon was BS. And now there's also a new social payment thing, Subscribestar. And maybe that's good. Maybe it's good to have competition. I'm not really sure. I don't exactly think that there's ever going to be a moment in which we're all saved. I think that it's always good to be cautious. That's why I've always been cautious. That's why you'll never get to hear me say the N-word unless I'm telling a story or quoting somebody else. I don't say that because I know how these people think, and how if I become their political enemy, they will use the technicality to take me out. And I will explain how I've known that since I was 23 some other time. But I do think that the internet will stay around for a while. I do think that these companies will stay around for a while. And they probably will slowly but surely change. That's just my guess. By the way, I will be scripting a video tomorrow. I swear I finished with the side project thing for now, so I can actually spend some time really writing a script. So, yeah, I know that my scripted videos are ultimately better. I'll try to even do some with video clips and everything. Okay.